Hey y'all, welcome to Gadfly, the podcast about third parties, French candidates, and just generally weird American electoral history. I'm Dusty Wilson.
I'm Una O'Leary.
And we are back for part 3 of who knows how many of the story of Lyndon LaRouche, because Una, this guy's story just keeps going.
Right, I was going to say, it's up to Lyndon, really, how long this keeps going.
Oh my God.
How many more turns can happen before he just arrives at the place where he was?
You know, it's going to be really embarrassing when you find out he's immortal and the story's just always going to go.
No!
Yeah, it really sucks because I want to break this down into like minimal parts, but each time I try to make a section, there's just so many amazing details that I cannot cut. And there's so much conspiracy lore that has to kind of be woven in to understand why the crazy things he thinks are even crazier. So yeah, when we last left our old buddy Lyndon, shit was getting what one would call real. Not only had he succeeded in creating his own far-left political party with the U.S. Labor Party, but he was also part of creating a new political party in Sweden, started publishing the Executive Intelligence Review, and founded the Fusion Energy Foundation. And also, he kind of made a cult using ego death, essentially funded the whole thing by grifting his own followers, who at this point had become devout followers no matter what, and weaned out anyone with the audacity to, disagree with him or anything in that manner. So despite all of this, the U.S. Labor Party was not doing well. The most common experience for most candidates was to get less than 1% of the vote, and no one ever came close to winning office. So following the 1974 elections, one could say a revaluation was in order. LaRouche and his people really wanted to make their mark on American politics. They had to find a way to make their unique vision of socialism really kind of sing with the public, and maybe stop going to physical war with all the other communists and socialists in America. So Lyndon developed a plan, and much like him, it was completely bugfuck. But in a way, I kind of understand. Because you remember Operation Mop-Up, where he was just going around beating the shit out of communists and socialists just to kind of assert dominance?
There was a name for it?
Yeah, it was called Operation Mop-Up.
Oh, Lord.
Essentially, by doing that, it did create like an air of dominance and fear. But the problem is when you start beating up people who would join you, you kind of get rid of the population that you can recruit from. And so by the time that he had completely finished up the operation, he had run out of people who would theologically believe with him. He kind of had to go to a new realm of thought to be able to get new people.
He needs to start thinking MLM. Like, you need to be upline. You're downline right now.
You know, this is the thing that blows my mind, is that he was not making his followers get a downline for new members. It just seemed like he got his 1,000 and kept it. And so he decided what he was going to do was to start recruiting from a murderer's row of really god-awful fucking people. And I'm going to try really, really hard here, but I'm going to go from least awful to most awful. And I want you to remember that because we're going to start with a guy named Mitchell Warbell III.
Okay.
And Mitchell's not what I would call a good person by any stretch. So Mitchell's kind of one of history's most mysterious monsters. A journalist once called him a mysterious white Russian that she knew very little about. He had claimed that he was the son of a former czarist imperial soldier of some sort. That was never confirmed nor denied, but it's really good for his story to make it seem like he's a bigger guy than he is.
Yeah, I'm sure his sister was Anastasia.
Look, when you kill the czar, you got to go somewhere. And so Mitch made his career being a very shady military dude. During World War II, he was a member of the OSS, which was, for America, they essentially did covert espionage missions for the Allies.
It was like pre-CIA.
Exactly. But after the war, he tried hopping into civilian life, but it really kind of didn't seem to appeal to him. He did marketing for the most part, which is a really good way to find out you don't like marketing.
Yes, confirmed.
So in the 1950s, he'd moved into the industry he became renowned for. And that's essentially mercenary work for dictators.
Oh, no.
He would start this career as an advisor for the dictator of the Dominican Republic, Rafael Trujillo. Some highlights of Rafael's history include using a disastrous hurricane to instill permanent martial law, renaming the country's capital from Santo Domingo to Ciudad Trujillo, which essentially means Trujillo City. And he forced every citizen to become a member of his political party. If you are in the government, though, and were a member of his political party, you were obligated to tithe 10% of your paycheck back to the party. But of course, I mean, you wouldn't have to join the party. It's just you would probably die if you didn't. Now, he did, in all fairness, allow a secondary party to operate for a little bit, but the ulterior motive that he had was, if I have a second party operate for a little bit, I can see who my opponents are and then murder them. And that's what he did. Everyone who joined the secondary party suddenly disappeared.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and Mitchell's like, this is the guy I want to work for. This guy seems great. I can probably trust this dude. Now, it should be noted that Trujillo was one of the few world leaders to accept Jewish refugees during the Holocaust, so that's like the one thing he has going for him. But he balanced this out by pretty much killing off as many Haitians living in the country as he possibly could during his rule.
Wow. Listen, people are complicated.
Yeah. It's such a disappointing thing, but I'm sure.
Wait, let me amend that. Hatred is complicated.
Yeah, there we are. There we go. Okay,
it.
I can agree with that. Yeah, hatred has very few rules, and it's tough to discern. But yeah, this guy was a real piece of shit. So after getting the in with Trujillo and the Dominican Republic, he was able to move to his next dictator, a dude by the name of Fulgencio Batista in Cuba, which was the dictator that was running the place before Castro took over.
What?
And essentially, the job he had there was a bit more responsibility because Fulgencio was wanting to plan a full-on invasion of Haiti.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was an invasion that would have included the Cuban military, Haitian refugees living in Cuba, and as many American mercenaries as they could get. And the goal of the invasion was to take down Haitian dictator Papa Doc Duvalier, who was a fucking monster. It's just monsters everywhere.
It's monsters all the way down.
So, I don't know when a plan becomes just a net neutral. It's like any invasion feels like a bad idea, but when it's like two dictators fighting, citizens lose.
Yeah, I feel like the title should be like everything you thought you knew about how bad it's been for Haiti. It's actually, there's still so much worse. It keeps going.
You could literally do a 3-year documentary series on all the way the world has fucked Haiti, and you'd still need more time.
Yep.
And so he's making this plan, and he ends up getting a pretty cool sign on. CBS News got word of the invasion. They're like, hey, bitch, we really want to film the whole thing. Can we get the rights to film this invasion?
Hold up. What? CBS? Yeah. What? Was
CBS
it Sweeps Weeks?
Yeah. Look, they hadn't found Capone's vault yet, so you got to do something.
Yeah, wait, so this is pre-Fidel. So this is
this is like 1950s. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think this is a really good lesson for everyone listening, because we learned it a bit with Bo Greitz. Anytime the media of any sort is like, hey, love what you're doing, want to know more, that is always a sign that they are hired by someone else, and that someone else is usually the FBI.
Ooh.
Turns out the entire CBS crew were employees of CBS, but they, like, the FBI said, hey, heard what you're doing. We'd really urge you to be informants for us.
I mean, that's one of those things where I'm like, yes, good on the FBI for noticing, like, the person we're tracking is definitely a narcissist who has connections with TV. Like, let's make this easy for everyone.
We need to call one of the 3 channels and hope for the best.
You get a scoop, we get our guy.
Yeah. And so the invasion ends up getting halted, mainly because the FBI arrested 75 of the members of the invasion, including Mitchell. The funny thing, though, is Mitchell would end up being released without a single charge, and I guarantee you he learned his lesson from the experience. And, he kind of did, because in between invasions and dictator work, he decided to do what all of us do, and he started a gun company. He started a company called Psionics, and they made machine guns, they made sights, and during this process, Mitch became a bit of an arms dealer.
Here's the thing, is like he started with one dictator, realized, like, you know what? I'm looking for room to grow. Go with the second dictator, and then was like, wait, why am I buying retail like a rube? I could just go in wholesale.
I feel it's more Peter Principle, where he got too big of a job and didn't realize how in over his head he was, because he'd never planned a coup. He's never planned an invasion. And it didn't work out. You learn some lessons, and you're not going to get another job after that. It's not like another dictator is going to be like, hey, I saw this go down and you trusted CBS News, who knew the FBI. I'll give you a second chance. You need to cool off for a little bit.
It's a small network.
Yeah. Yeah, not a big industry.
No.
Yeah, your best hope is that all the dictators who laughed at you were killed at some point, and then you can kind of sneak back in.
But who has the time? And then they're going to ask about that period where you didn't work in your resume.
Well, the funny thing is he only had to wait until 1972 for another movement to come along and hire his services. And it's a really weird one I didn't know anything about, called the Abaco Independence Movement. So Abaco Island is in the Bahamas. And turns out that some folks who living on Abaco were really nervous that the Bahamas were about to declare their independence from Britain. But they also really wanted to make their own country to create, and I shit you not, Una, a libertarian paradise.
They almost had it.
We are sneaking into something that I'm very excited about, the Libertarian Island Nation movement. The many failed attempts that 70s libertarians made to try to make their own nation out of nothing.
Here's where we fall into a problem with the medium of podcasting, because there's no way to adequately express verbally or orally my eye roll right now.
Yeah.
Everything that's just happening.
Yeah, it's like that sarcasm symbol that we decided not to use for some reason that we really fucking need. Yeah,
Yes.
the whole libertarian movement is wackadoo beyond words. Just to give you an idea of how fucking weird it was, at one point, this libertarian movement, I believe it was the Phoenix Foundation, decided what they were going to do was build an island in the Pacific and just essentially create a barge, and on that barge, create a nation.
So they really had no idea what they were doing. Like,
Oh,
they
no.
were doubling down on not knowing what they were doing.
I feel like Kids Nation had better success than the Libertarian Island movement. But yeah, and so this was the next thing they tried was to try to get the Abaco Islands, which is one of hundreds of Bahamian islands, to just declare their independence and be their own libertarian paradise. And so the movement on Abaco would be featured in an article by Esquire that made it sound a whole lot like they were on the verge of doing their own coup, because it's not like the Bahamas were cool with losing an island, even if that island has a population of about 20,000 people. It's still, we're declaring our independence from Britain. We don't need complications here. The funny thing though is like the libertarians of Abaco were kind of weighing all their options. Like, all right, we could do this by referendum. We could try to just win seats and do things that way, or we could try a coup against an entire country and see how that goes. And they looked at all their options. They're like, maybe the coup is not the best of ideas, especially since, Britain probably still has treaties with the Bahamas. And if shit went down, I imagine you'd have the Royal Navy at your doorstep pretty fucking quick.
Yeah. Because was the Bahama independence, that was fairly like friendly as far as independence from.
Yeah, I would compare it, and I might be wrong in here, to the current Barbados independence movement, where Barbados has been an independent nation for a while, but they're just like, the Queen don't run us no more a few weeks ago, and Britain was fine with it, I'm sure the corgis are a little sad, but, in the 70s, Britain had a lot to deal with, and I imagine a number of nations that they used to run saying, hey, we're independent now, was probably the least of their worries.
Right. It's like, cool, there's a huge mine avalanche in Wales, and we kind of need to deal with that. Yeah, also, like, the IRA are still assholes.
Are you going to be the dick that invades the Bahamas? What kind of fucking asshole would invade the Bahamas? Maybe people who invade the Falklands? I don't fucking know, but it's still a bad idea.
Fine, we'll still holiday there. It's just whatever.
So they decide, like, coup's not a good idea. They're just going to go the election route. Mitchell's allowed to go on his own way. It all fell apart in 1977 during the elections on the island, where the Progressive Liberal Party ended up winning, I believe it was 31 out of 38 seats in the entire nation, including Abaco Island. And the Libertarians realized pretty quickly that the locals were not on their side.
They weren't the locals? The Libertarians who were like all about this weren't even the locals?
I haven't gotten huge details on this. I couldn't find the Esquire article, but I have two theories. One, there was a small group of libertarian locals, more than likely expats, who decided they were going to do this, and the locals just kind of sat back and just waited for them to get killed.
This is like, I've seen this before. It was the British.
Yeah, and then the other option is like this libertarian island movement just noticed an opportunity, had a couple contacts on an island in the Bahamas, and said, all right, we'll make the most of this and see what we can do. And so after they lost the election, it completely fell apart, and Abaco Island has been comfortably in the Bahamas for quite some time.
Mazel tov, Abaco.
So it didn't help that while attempting to plan that coup, Mitchell was also helping plan another coup. So this was going to be against the maximum leader of Panamanian Revolution, a dude named Omar Torrijos. So you would expect with a title like that, he's probably a dictator, probably not a nice guy. I didn't see too much bad about him, but then again, I didn't do too deep of a dive. But you give yourself a title like that, it doesn't bode well.
Yeah, and if you're not finding anything at the first scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this was going to be a coup against the maximum leader. So Mitchell's whole plan was, look, I did this secret last time and the FBI got real mad. So I'm going to do this time is I'm going to call the CIA and see if they're interested in helping. To which the CIA essentially said, we don't do coups. Never did coups. Not going to do a coup.
La, 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 la.
Hey, man, we're not taking outside input here. We have a storyboard of coups. Yours is not on it.
New phone, who dis? Sorry, I'm getting a call from Pinochet. I gotta hang up.
Look, I mean, I imagine there's just like a huge Asana at the CIA and some guys like, what about Panama? And they're like, I don't know, maybe Q4 in 8 years. Yeah. I don't know what you want, man. Shit's busy. So that ended up fizzling out the whole thing. And, just to tidy everything up, there was one other job that Mitchell claimed he was doing. So there was a bit of unrest in Argentina in the early 1970s. And a little pop company by the name of Coca-Cola came to Mitchell and said, hey, we're really worried about our executives in Buenos Aires. Could you kind of protect them from being killed?
Oh my God.
Now Coca-Cola has denied this since 1979. And as weird as it is to say, I mean, Mitchell's admitted to enough dumb shit that he doesn't really need to make anything up. And based on everything I've read, this would have been the only thing he made up. So, and Coke's kind of a fucky company. I kind of believe they would do it and then deny it. Pepsi don't pull this shit. RC Cola stays in their own fucking lane.
Yeah, Faygo never leaves Detroit.
Woo woo, juggalos.
What up, though?
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Fucking piss off an army of juggalos? No, you're not. Faygo minds his fucking business. Which leads us to the time of Mitchell meeting Lyndon. So while Mitchell's doing all this cool stuff, his gun company is going great. They changed the name to Cobra Company. It's all slick and 70s, and they're doing great. And things are going so well that Mitchell has decided to expand the business to include training. So he has opened a training facility in Powder Springs, Georgia, where for 11 weeks, he will train anyone in everything he knows.
If there's anything I've learned from the screenwriting industry, it's that, the classes are where the money's at. The fucking master classes. Yeah. The end of 8 weeks, you will know how to Krav Maga kill a guy.
Now you get on that fucking tenure track, man. It is a good way to go. And it worked out great for Mitchell. This particular classwork did amazing for him. And it ended up being the exact thing that Lyndon wanted. He was becoming more and more paranoid of assassinations and was speaking more often that when the revolution truly came, folks kind of need to be prepared to use violence. An example of this is back during Operation Mop Up, when people are getting really mad at just beating people up and like throwing nunchucks in people's faces. Lyndon would say, yeah, this is violent. You fuckers aren't even going to be prepared when it's time to use guns.
Oh my God. So he was like an OG survivalist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to defend Lyndon much, but if your ultimate goal is an armed revolution to create a form of government, people aren't going to go about that calmly. It's probably going to involve a bit of weaponry. So I see where he's coming from, but coming from him is fucked up.
Yeah.
So for a number of years, Lyndon became a regular customer of Mitchell's coup classes. The majority of people who went down there became Lyndon's private security and guarded him at all times. Mitchell and Lyndon would even form a friendship, which gave access for Lyndon for a wealth of military contacts and intelligence that he had been wanting to achieve for years. Because one of Lyndon's biggest goals is to try to create an intelligence agency of some sort. And it's really not taking off that much, but now that he kind of has contact to military leaders, these weird fucking dictators, he kind of gets an inside track at least in some regards. But not only would his people be trained, but that intelligence network he had always wanted would now become a reality from here on out. So we're going to move on, but I do want to mention the end of Mitchell's life because it is fucking buck wild. So in 1982, he attempted a coup in Guatemala. That failed. So he returned to work purely in the States. And in 1983, he was allegedly hired by the founder of the porn magazine Hustler, Larry Flynt. And Larry wanted Mitchell to kill his competitors. This included Hugh Hefner, Bob Guccione, who created Penthouse, a magazine publisher by the name of Walter Annenberg, and fuck it, let's throw in Frank Sinatra.
What?
Yep.
Oh, Blue Eyes.
Get him. And there is even a $1 million check that KNBC in Los Angeles actually has a photocopy to prove that the transaction happened. Now, here's the thing. Larry Flynt's a bit of he's as much of a joker as he is an asshole. And
yeah, he's an asshole.
He claims to this day that it was a fucking joke.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
I mean, I would be a little more towards nope if he didn't add Frank Sinatra to that fucking list. Like, that seems like a dead giveaway that he's not fucking serious. Like, the first two names, like, I think you're real. I think you mean what you're doing here. But yeah, so essentially a month after Mitchell got this check, dude died of a heart attack. So a number of years later, it's always assumed Mitchell died of a heart attack. And a few years later, there is a court case called the Cotton Club trials, where one of the people who was being tried funded a movie called The Cotton Club. There was a murder, a number of things happened. It's very complicated. And one of the witnesses that they had under oath stated that what had happened to Mitchell is that Flynt had him poisoned in an attempt to take over his training school in Georgia.
Wait.
Yeah. I mean, this is a simple plan that people always do. Like, there's a business I want. So I call the guy over. I pour a bunch of sleeping pills into his drink. He drinks it. He dies of a heart attack. And then I get his shit.
And there's...
Una, in this world, wills don't exist. It's not... Not fucking real.
I mean, unfortunately, the hang up I'm on is how, like, frankly, the nostalgia factor. It just feels like no one commits these weird, vague, murdery deaths anymore. The way that, like, you never hear about quicksand like you did when you were a child of the 80s.
Yeah, these are pure cocaine dreams. Just people who are just long gone on a trip and have decided this joke is so funny to me that I will waste $1 million check just to find it goddamn funny. But
that I believe.
It should also be noted that all of this probably obviously isn't true. This is the statement of someone who is in legal deep shit and is just trying to throw the scent, allegedly and more than likely. So I don't think Mitchell Warbell was ever going to kill Hefner and Guccione and Sinatra, but it's just such a weird fucking twist that 1 month after getting hired to do this, someone who Flint knows is claiming that he was killed on purpose.
Maybe the $1 million check and like the quote unquote joke of killing Hugh Hefner and Frank Sinatra was a way to launder the $1 million safely for something even more ridiculously illegal.
You know, Occam's razor. I think that makes the most sense. I hate it, but that makes sense. Man, money laundering used to be fun.
Right.
So Mitchell's dead, but that's how Mitchell Warbell and Lyndon LaRouche became friends and how Mitchell began training his cult. And I will remind you, this is the least worst person that Lyndon has suddenly become friends with in 1974. Because we're going to move on to two of the most well-known and shittiest people he became friends with at the time. Neo-Nazi Willis Carto and the Grand Dragon of the Pennsylvania KKK, Roy Frankhauser. Now, I will say this, Carto is going to get his own episode one day. His whole life is weird. The whole world of neo-Nazis was very, sad's not the word. It's hubrisly hilarious, I think is the best way to put it. Just, they all get their comeuppance in beautiful goddamn ways. And it's chef's kiss great. But the basic deal behind Carto is he founded a group called the Liberty Lobby. They're all about anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, which worked out really well for Lyndon. So one of the things that should be noted is that Lyndon was constantly accused of anti-Semitism at a certain point. He sued the Anti-Defamation League in 1979 because they said he was an anti-Semite. And when it went to court, the judge said, that's just their opinion, man. And it seems right.
I'm impressed they went to court.
Yeah. Lyndon he was very litigious. I would try to cover all the lawsuits he did, but they're innumerable and bullshit and boring. So I'm only going to cover like maybe one or two. But the sort of dog whistle that Lyndon would start with was the idea that, sure are a lot of rich people running this world. Sure are a lot of bankers running this world. Sure seem to be a lot of powerful Jewish families running this world.
Wow. So he was Twitter before Twitter.
Oh, yeah. And so that was kind of his whole deal. And so Willis Carto was like, okay, I could kind of fuck with this. This is we at least have some common ground in this regard.
I'm imagining two dogs like tentatively circling and sniffing each other at a dog park.
That is 100% what Carto and LaRouche is right now.
Great.
But the real head scratcher friendship here was definitely Roy Frankhauser. So Roy grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, and he was a high school dropout by the 10th grade. But that wasn't enough time for his classmates to make the realization that Roy sure collects a lot of Nazi shit for a teenager. He bought uniforms, paraphernalia. He was pretty much that dad's secret room in American Beauty. It's just, Nazi shit just fucking everywhere.
Where is he even getting the money?
That's what I was wanting to know, because I remember as a teenager, gas and Mountain Dew was a luxury. I don't 100%. Know how you save up for Nazi shit. There's at least got to be shipping. So, of course, after dropping out, the army was like, hey, we'll take you. And he ended up spending a year as a paratrooper and was honorably discharged. And then immediately after being honorably discharged, he joined the American Nazi Party in 1960.
God damn.
From here would begin Roy's very extensive criminal history. At the age of 22, Roy would be arrested for the very first time at a protest for kicking a cop in the shins.
What?
Yep. He was just at a Nazi rally and he saw a cop and he's like, I'm going to kick that pig in the shins. And then he did it. And this became what he was known for. He would be arrested at Nazi rallies constantly for causing various disturbances, and he would eventually get the nickname Riot Roy.
Wow.
Now, sometime around then, he had also lost an eye. Now, as we say here many times on Gadfly, how he lost it depends on who you ask, but also it depends on what day and time you asked Roy, because he consistently changed his story about how he lost his eye. If you asked him one day, it was because a group of pipe-wielding Jews beat it out of his face, which I'd watch that movie. That'd be fucking great.
Yeah. So that Inglourious Bastards.
Oh my God, it'd be great. Another story is he was at a bar in Reading and a group of black dudes beat him up and knocked his eye out. Also watch that movie. But probably his funniest is that he would occasionally claim that he lost his eye during the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba.
Wow. What?
A thing that's easily provably wrong.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying the HR department of the KKK sucks, but apparently being a consistent liar and constantly getting arrested was more than enough to make Roy the leader of the Pennsylvania KKK in 1965.
Soar like an eagle.
So by 1974, Roy had created a very long resume. He was the member of 5 far-right racist organizations, but he had also secretly joined another shady group. He joined the FBI as an informant. Now, before you start to get a ray of hope that he's informing on his own dudes, what he did is he came to the FBI and said, hey, look, I have a lot of extensive experience around the Black Panthers, the Jewish Defense League, the IRA, and the Palestinian Black September movement. And if you give me a chance, I'll get you the dirt.
He's like, hey. You hate Martin Luther King.
Oh my God.
I hate Martin Luther King.
Look, I'll make you a deal. I'll infiltrate the IRA, get you this information, and in exchange, I'll stop kicking cops for a week. So the FBI, being the class act that they are, said, okay, we'll give you a trial run. And his initial goal was to try to infiltrate the Canadian sect of the Black September movement, which I will reiterate is mostly Palestinian. And surprise, surprise, he didn't get in. They would not let him near the group or get any information. And so he had nothing to give the FBI.
The visual I have is Steve Buscemi from that 30 Rock episode where it's like, how do you do, fellow children?
Hello, fellow revolutionaries. Any information for a new up-and-coming chap?
Salam.
And so the FBI was like, oh, you failed, Hugh Shock. No second turn. And so he would end up telling Lyndon about this. And to Lyndon, this wasn't so much that he was a corrupt bastard willing to sell people out and work with jerks. To Lyndon, this was proof that the FBI was constantly working with groups to fuck with people. It proved to Lyndon that he was always right about the FBI. But also, it caused Lyndon to be like, hey, you know what job you would be great at? Being my full-time security consultant.
You kick cops and you're angrier than me. Let's do this.
Yeah. So part of the reason that they decided that the Pennsylvania KKK and Roy Frankhauser decided to join was that they found the U.S. Labor Party and the NCLC, quote, racist enough for their liking.
Oh, God.
Yeah. They did know it's like, there are a lot of Jews in your group, but you know what? Baby steps. We'll make it work. The thing, though, is Roy would eventually get sent to jail for about 5 years for attempting to sell 240 pounds of stolen dynamite.
Again, where did he get it? Where did he get the money?
Well, he would claim that he got the dynamite directly from the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms and was an undercover agent for them trying to catch people buying illegal dynamite.
No, they don't have a closet where there's a lost and found.
Yeah, the dynamite
he was just able to go in and be like, I'm just going to borrow this dynamite for the weekend.
Yeah. Hey, you guys need some people arrested? You might have to borrow, like, I don't know, 240 pounds of dynamite. It's cool. I have a truck.
I feel like he got it from the IRA, frankly.
And so when he went to trial, he was like, no, bring in the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And they did. And they're like, we have nothing to do with this guy. I don't know what the fuck he's talking
What did he think he was going to happen?
Exactly. Like, even if he was aligned with the ATF, they are not going to fucking admit that on the stand.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, call us out for perjury. I dare you.
Your Honor, I would like to declare my right of sucks to suck. Yeah. And I got lunch. See ya. The thing, though, is during this trial, Lyndon would actually supply Roy with funding for his legal defense. And he viewed all of this as proof that the government and powerful Jewish families were more than willing to screw over people who were even helping them. That once your use was gone, they would turn on you immediately. Now, I do have to note, there is a ton of debate as to why Lyndon suddenly started not just allying with far-right people, but also making the U.S. Labor Party a lot more racist and anti-Semitic. And like I said earlier, in one regard, if your job is kicking the shit out of communists and socialists, your far-right groups are actually going to be pretty fond of that. It's tough to walk up to a John Bircher, say you nunchucked a communist in the face, and have them not immediately like you.
Yeah.
But Willis Carto would even state that the U.S. Labor Party was doing great work by introducing chaos to the far-left movement. But also there's evidence that the Nazis and the KKK didn't take this potential alliance too seriously. Like you said, they're pretty much like dogs testing each other out to see what's going on. At most, to everyone involved, this would just be an alliance of convenience for the time being and existed only for as long as they needed it. The FBI and CIA thought for a little bit that maybe the USSR had ordered Lyndon to make these inroads to cause a general chaos, but after speaking to their informants in the NCLC, they were told, and I'm paraphrasing, Lyndon doesn't know Soviets. They don't like him. And really, there wouldn't be much time to evaluate why Willis Carto was even talking to them, because eventually members of the Liberty Lobby grew concerned about, like I said, the number of Jews in the NCLC and decided, you know what, this isn't worth our time or our brand. And 1 year later, broke ties.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the wake of this, the NCLC would tell their members that the whole goal was actually to sow enough chaos to push the revolution into happening. And then when the revolution happened, all they would have are these far right people who they could take out very easily. And then the country's theirs, man.
Come on. They're as bad as the like weird Jesus-y people who are like, the second coming is going to happen. We just need to make it happen faster.
You know, I read that and it's like, why didn't you talk to Mitch? Like do a second draft with him. I'm pretty sure he'd at least have a better idea than talk to Nazis and hope. But what they didn't know is that the true opening to salvo of the revolution was about to start in 1976. And, you know, to make a revolution work, it's got to be something bold and new. People have tried revolutions in America for quite some time. Only one has even happened. But especially if you're doing a communist revolution, I mean, you could march, but that hasn't worked. You could protest, you could do any number of things, but it hasn't worked. Lyndon's got an idea of what will, something no one's done before. He's going to run for president.
Yeah, he's going to be the ultimate outsider insider.
You know, you say that, and I'm pretty sure that was the motto of the campaign.
Yes.
So Lyndon has decided enough's enough. And if you're going to do something right, you better do it your fucking self. And he made himself the U.S. Labor Party nominee for president. And his reasoning for doing so were about as half-baked and as rational as you'd come to expect from the Rat King. But first, we need the basics. So Lyndon would announce his candidacy, and that his running mate would be a dude named Ronald Wayne Evans. Now, Ronald or Wayne or R. Wayne, they're kind of all over the place of what his name is referred to.
Bad branding. Yeah. Right away.
He was a chemical worker and labor leader out of Michigan. And as far as I can tell, that's it. I can't find any other information on the guy. So, par for the course of the fucking U.S. Labor Party. But also it makes sense. I mean, you don't want a running mate who's going to distract from Lyndon. This is the guy who knows everything. He's a fucking Marxist economist. He does computer. He knows what he's doing, man.
You want a milquetoast union worker out of Michigan.
So during the early part of 1976, it kind of seems like Lyndon laid pretty low. And the best I could kind of tell as to what was going on comes from an early interview with Jim and Denise Minnick of Rochester, New York. They were a pair of 23-year-olds. They had recently graduated from Syracuse. They were jobless and appeared to be getting most of their money from the party to continue these particular campaigns. So these guys set the idea of what the campaign is going to be. So first, they believe that they need about 33% of the popular vote to win, which, I kind of see what they're going there. It's, you assume a third's going to go to the Republicans, a third's going to go to the Democrats. And if you just eke that out, you have a chance of winning. So I kind of see what they're seeing there. But once again, this is dependent to them on whether or not President Gerald Ford is assassinated.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. And look, that sounds paranoid and it sounds fucking weird, but you also kind of have to understand what happened to Gerald Ford in 1975, particularly September was a bad fucking month for the guy. On September 5th, 1975, former Manson family member Squeaky Fromme had attempted to shoot Ford point blank in Sacramento, California. Essentially, she had a gun, went to shake his hand, shook his hand, fired the gun, and there was a click. And this is because she had a revolver, and in the revolver were 4 bullets, and the chamber that she fired was empty.
I forgot about that. Bah.
Then on September 22nd, a woman by the name of Sarah Jane Moore attempted to shoot Ford in San Francisco, but failed when a bystander grabbed her arm just before she fired. So 2 times Gerald Ford should be dead, but isn't. So thinking that someone else might try to kill Ford really isn't that fucking weird.
All right, yeah.
As for the platform, I hate to say it, but there is one thing I like. And it's essentially continues on the moratorium idea, where when they were initially running the party, it's that there'd be a moratorium and everything owed to the city of New York. But they want to take that worldwide. It's essentially a federal moratorium that counts to U.S. citizens as well as every single country in the world that owes money to America. So Lyndon felt that the goal behind this, at least for Americans, is if you're not repaying the government student loans, back taxes, things like that, you're going to get a taste of what socialism really could be like. And from there, you'll start to realize, hey, capitalism's kind of shit. Maybe Lyndon knows what he's talking about. Along with this, they also planned on creating an international currency that they called, quote, the transferable ruble. So crypto, I assume.
Yeah. It's
Also, they would focus on an investment in agricultural technology, use and research, and mass transit. And fuck it, they always get me with this fucking train shit. Like, you promised me trains, I'll at least like you a little bit.
I'll listen, yeah.
But this whole plan would then be run by something that they were calling the International Development Bank. And it was something they were running to use to get rid of the International Monetary Fund. Either which way, they kind of wanted to make their own international bank that really didn't bank and more so...
It's more of a credit union.
Exactly, yeah.
With online rubles.
The transferable ruble. It's like money, only worthless. But the U.S. Labor Party honestly isn't all about policy. Frankly, barely about policy, and a lot more about Lyndon saving you from the most evil people controlling America, and, in turn, saving Gerald Ford from the most obvious curator of the next assassination. You see, Lyndon actually really liked Gerald Ford. Towards the end of his campaign, he'd shifted it a bit, not being so much, I'm going to win the election, to we have to make sure Gerald Ford wins. He had referred to Gerald Ford as an honest American and a known quantity that we can be fine with.
What incredibly beige statements.
I mean, for an incredibly beige man.
Sure, yes, another milquetoast man from Michigan.
But what he couldn't abide by was public enemy number 1, Gerald Ford's vice president, a dude by the name of Nelson Rockefeller. Now, Nelson has a long and storied life, and covering it all in 10 minutes is a real bad idea. But fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. You see, Nelson is the grandson of billionaire and the richest person of all time when adjusted for inflation, John D. Rockefeller. The family is extraordinarily rich, is still incredibly rich, and will be rich until the death of the son. So at the age of 36, Nelson made the shift into politics and proceeded to become FDR's Assistant Secretary of State for the American Republic Affairs. After that, he was Dwight Eisenhower's Undersecretary of Health, Education, and Welfare. And then he spent 1959 to 1973 as the governor of New York. And I will say this, I'm going to say a lot of things that are very worth liking about Nelson. But I will also say this, Una, don't fall in love, because this guy's a Cuomo.
Oh,
so Nelson was a Republican. He was kind of referred to as the last band of progressive Republicans that existed for a while. Nowadays, he'd probably be considered more of a liberal Democrat than anything.
Sure, like a limousine Democrat, maybe.
100%. So some ideas that he was fond of. He was pro-choice. He created the first ever state council on the arts. He was an avid advocate of civil rights and equal rights. He made 55 new state parks, grew the State University of New York from 29 campuses to 72. He bought the University of Buffalo for the state university and ended up becoming one of the most successful colleges they have.
Oh, shit.
He is credited with having built 88,000 units of low-income housing. He created the very first ever statewide minimum wage law, which he then raised 5 times during his tenure. He worked closely with public workers unions to ensure that they had the best benefits. He improved treatment of state-run hospitals, created the modern version of New York's MTA, and created the largest state medical care program in the country. And when I read this, I was like, holy fuck, this guy's great. This is a dude you could see yourself loving, and Andrew Cuomo.
No, does he? At least let me have a little moment to like cool and collect myself, because all those things got my little Democrat ass hot and bothered.
Yeah, no, this is all good shit. Just reading through a lot of the stuff he did, it's like these are really great, and I'm glad you did it. The MTA is a hot mess, but it is what it is. It's a deadbeat dad, but it's someone's deadbeat dad, and God forbid I take it away from someone.
But it's a deadbeat dad who's just not getting paid enough, so exactly. I can't front you on the alimony.
Because he doesn't care. He buys it because it's the best treat he can do.
Yeah.
Some other things I'm remembering. The Long Island Expressway exists because of Rockefeller. The fact that New York is connected to Staten Island and Long Island and a number of like the upper New York train systems is because of him.
Okay, wait, but is this also the era of Robert Moses?
I believe it was. I might.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. All right. So hit me with the news of why I should never meet my heroes.
Well, I mean, I probably should have referred to him more as a Bill Clinton because Nelson Rockefeller, man's tough on crime, very tough on crime. He doubled the number of cops in the state. He encouraged the practice of stop and frisk and fully supported the use of no-knock warrants.
Wow.
Yeah. The biggest fuck up of his career, though, would come on September 9th of 1971. And that is the day that prisoners of the Attica Correctional Facility took over a block of the prison and then took 72 guards and employees as hostages.
Yes.
Now, much of the reasoning behind this is the prisoners were living in extraordinarily terrible conditions. Overcrowding had become a major issue. And so this was kind of viewed as the one option they had to have any sort of change.
Yeah.
A bit of negotiation had been going on with the Department of Corrections, and the Department of Corrections actually agreed to every single demand that they had, but one. And it was probably the most important demand that they had. And it was no one would be punished for causing this riot. And the Department of Corrections said, you can go fuck yourself. We'll make all these changes and all of you are going into the goddamn hole.
Oof.
So sensing things weren't going great, Nelson Rockefeller went to the state police and the National Guard and said, hey guys, fucking take it. Just go in and take it over. So after 5 days, the state police and the National Guard storm into the prison, just start what they referred to as a turkey shoot, just hitting bodies. And during that time, they ended up wounding 85 prisoners and 5 hostages. And during that time, they killed 30 inmates and 10 hostages.
Oh.
But hey, prison's taken back. Protest is done. Everyone goes in the fucking hole. It would later be found on a recorded phone call with Richard Nixon because, of course, it was recorded. Jesus. When Nixon asked him, like, hey, that was a fuck up. Why'd that happen? How do you feel about it? Nelson Rockefeller said, quote, that's life.
Jesus Christ. What a psychotic sugar daddy for the state of New York.
It's almost like money doesn't make good people. Because, the Rockefellers, they run a lot of philanthropic groups. Nelson and his 2 brothers, John III and other one, they were running a lot of shit and doing a lot of public good. But behind the scenes, they're like, fuck it, people die. I don't give a shit.
Wow, this is some succession shit right here.
And the other big issue, though, is that Rockefeller, what's the word I'm looking for? Fucked everyone who wasn't his wife. He cheated on his first wife as well as his second wife. And it's been reported that when his first wife consistently caught him cheating on her, his solution to the whole thing was, hey, how about we have an unwilling open marriage and we just stay married for optics? This is one of my favorite details. I didn't write this down. So when he was married to his first wife, they owned a 3-floor penthouse suite, and when they got divorced, she got the first floor, and he got to keep the other 2 floors. And so she's living on, I think, the 7th floor. He's living on the 8th and 9th with his new wife. His old wife would enter on one side of the building, and they would enter on the other side of the building.
No, girl, sell it.
Like, a part of me kind of respects that. Fuck you. Like, this is my apartment. I will listen to you fuck. I have been my entire life.
Yeah. I got the bag.
Another fun detail is when Rockefeller died, he was in the apartment of a 25-year-old assistant.
Oh my God, it was that classic, like he had a heart attack during it.
More than like, yeah, you're connecting all the dots, all the papers did. And look, allegedly that might have happened, but it was never proven. And yeah, but more than likely he died cheating on his wife.
And now it's like such a cliche neo-noir start to like any murder movie or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And now like 20 things in New York are named after him.
Yeah.
The one nice side of this, though, is that since he was a divorcee and an adulterous fuck, it essentially doomed any chance he would ever have of being president. He ran for president 3 different times, and all the Southern Republicans were like, you can go fuck yourself. You've been divorced. Eat shit. You are never going to get the nomination.
What do you think this is, 2016? We don't even know that.
And then there's reason 3. The big reason that Lyndon hated him, dude was best friends with Henry Kissinger, who just loved him a genocide. And you know, it's easy to joke about Henry Kissinger. He's like an evil Werner Herzog. He's very calm. He's like, we will bomb you until the time is done. It's fine. And like, they were just super best friends. This proved to Lyndon that the Rockefeller family were running things at the highest level of government with the aid of Henry Kissinger. And if they didn't have their way, they were going to kill Gerald Ford. Which should be noted that when Ford became president, it was after Nixon resigned. So Ford has never been elected president. He is the only president to just be given the job. Nelson Rockefeller was essentially picked to be his vice president, had to go through Senate confirmation and everything. So Rockefeller wasn't even elected. He was just kind of chosen, and this was the best he was ever going to get.
Yeah.
And so from there, he figured, you know, they kill Ford, they're going to start a police state, and then, you know, thermonuclear war, because they hate everyone so fucking much. They got to kill off the population and everyone they don't like, which is very Alex Jonesy when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is just like learning the Indo-European language of today's Michigas on social media.
Yeah, this is very much the prelude to InfoWars. It all kind of comes from this sort of template. And the craziest thing is that, you know what Rockefeller and Kissinger are doing, at least Lyndon thinks? He thinks that they are funding the KKK, the Weathermen, the Black Liberation Army, the Minutemen, which is sort of like a border group, and the Black Liberation Army, which is really funny because Lyndon's new friend Roy is the guy who founded the fucking Minutemen.
Like, my head is spinning. You know how like Omar tells you in The Wire, a man's got to have a code? It's just like, Lyndon, do you have one? Because it's you are all over the map. I can't pin the narrative thread of your insanity.
It's bonkers. So one of these days we will talk about the 76 election because it was so fucking weird. But eventually Jimmy Carter gets the Democratic nomination. Huge upset. When asked about Jimmy Carter, Lyndon said, quote, "He is a nitwit to begin with, an empty slop jar into which bad lemonade is being poured."
And rats are drinking it. All the rats.
Peanut rats.
Yeah. Desexualized rats.
Like all the terrible things people said about Jimmy Carter. He's just a nice man who never should have been president.
You're not even an economist, Lyndon.
Look, you put your lemonade in the slop jar. What do you expect? So by September 1976, Lyndon was finally starting to make public appearances and taking interviews for his candidacy. And it's during this time that he rattles off a list of not so much plans, but people that he considers to be his enemies. There's Noam Chomsky. Fuck that guy. He's a criminal. Don't like him. There's a secular humanist by the name of Paul Kurtz. But the big one that Lyndon crowned as the largest enemy of the entire world, the worst man to ever lived, not named Rockefeller, was a dude by the name of Marcus Raskin. So Marcus had entered into political work in his 20s, but after working for a pair of Democratic congressmen, he grew really disillusioned that people seemed more interested in doing the pragmatic thing than the moral thing. He'd eventually leave DC, and he co-founded a group called the Institute for Policy Studies, which he grew into one of the most important progressive think tanks in the entire nation. So the group spent the 60s advocating for the civil rights movement, the equal rights movement, and fought against the Vietnam War. They actually spoke out against the Vietnam War to such a degree that Raskin was arrested for encouraging the American population to resist the draft. But the big hit for them came in 1971 when Raskin was among the few people who ended up getting a, quote, mountain of paper that would end up becoming known as the Pentagon Papers.
Oh,
Yeah.
newspapers.
Yeah,
Oh.
that light reading. So for those you don't know, it's a set of papers that essentially prove that the US government and the Department of Defense had been lying to the American public about the Vietnam War for quite some time. Such things as like, there's more people there than we said. Oh, we're also bombing Cambodia and Laos. And my personal favorite, the reason for being in Vietnam, which was broken down in percentages, which I appreciate. 10% so the Vietnamese people could enjoy a better way of life. I believe 20% was to curb communism, but 70% was the most important. To not make America look bad. That if we left, we would look really, really bad. That was the whole reason we were staying.
In the Pentagon Papers, weren't there also like the reports from the Rand Corporation from like very early in the 60s being like, this is what's known as a sunk cost fallacy. Mm-hmm. Just get out. And the government was like, no,
not gonna do
bet on black. We're gonna win this eventually.
What do you want? Make me look bad? Fuck that, man. It's gonna take, I don't know, Walter Cronkite to do that.
We're in too deep. It's like, you're really not. Just leave.
Just go. Fucking George Prince didn't leave.
Go. Oh my God.
And honestly, I can't find much of a reason for why Lyndon would hate him. I could kind of see it him being like, all right, so Raskin is a very well-respected progressive who's fighting the good fight, getting results, and fuck that guy, because I should be getting results. He's not a communist, so this should be my revolution, so fuck that dude. I think partially it might be because he's affiliated with a guy named McGeorge Bundy, who went by Mac, because who's going to go by McGeorge? So Raskin worked for this guy for a while. Mac was one of Lyndon's least liked people in the world. Found him to be just abhorrent for a multitude of reasons, despite the fact that Mac fought like hell to keep Henry Kissinger from entering the government, calling him just a social climber, a guy who was just looking for any chance to gain power. So yeah, it's very confounding.
I feel like Marcus was, I don't know, his partner or his wife or his girlfriend looked like Lyndon's ex-girlfriend. I feel like it's that simple. Frankly, I don't want to lose the thread that so much of this began because a woman left him. I feel like that's really important to stress.
That's a really good thing to circle back to. Yeah. And like I can't find a single bad thing about Marcus Raskin. I'm sure it's out there, but the dude fought like hell. Fucking Pinochet attacked him and killed 2 of his people in a car bomb.
Oh man, well, okay, that is very unfortunate, and I feel for the families of those 2 people. But if there's any way to validate that you're doing the right thing, it's that Pinochet wants you dead.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just baffling to me that he considers Marcus Raskin to be one of the worst people in the world. But whatever, he's going far right now. So fuck it, why not? And so he would say this to the papers, and the papers would be like, cool. Do you have proof? Because the main thing he said about Raskin is that you could trace back any act of terror in the entire world to Marcus Raskin. And of course, the paper's like, hey, you got proof. And he said, I'm running a computer cross-related study to prove this. And when asked what data he was using, he's like, oh, IRS records. So essentially I think the goal is he was wanting to prove that Raskin was putting money into all these different organizations and funding terror. But of course, it never came out that way. But
no, and I feel like with the accusations we're entering the territory of like the thing I'm screaming at my opponent is absolutely the thing I am in fact doing. Maybe, which again we saw all over, like again and again in 2016 and probably coming up in 2024. I'm just going to say.
And like I'm bringing up Alex Jones a lot, but I see a lot of comparisons between Jones and LaRouche. And the main thing here is LaRouche is trying to act like the evidence that this is happening is hiding in plain sight, that all you have to do is look at the IRS tax records and you see everything. And a big thing with Jones is that he consistently states the most evil people in the world make these papers to brag about these terrible things that they're doing, when in actuality, he just doesn't know how to read. So funny enough, by this time, Lyndon had also begun rewriting the NCLC's own history. So you remember how he tried to take over Columbia University's chapter of Students for a Democratic Society and failed pretty much immediately?
Can never forget.
Turns out everything that he did was actually on purpose. The actual goal wasn't to take over the SDS, but to sow enough chaos to show students that the far left was broken and give them a new home for their ideals. As Lyndon put it, quote, we knew that the left was dead. We wanted to bust it up politically and pull out their people who were in the wrong place. It was a very sophisticated operation.
By an economist.
Look, I don't know if you know this. I teach at unaccredited colleges. So around this time, he was still railing against Nelson Rockefeller, calling for the vice president to be impeached, essentially saying things like impeach Rocky and all that stuff. But the funny thing is, by September Rocky's not running for vice president anymore. So when Gerald Ford was running for re-election, there was a bit of a worry that they wouldn't get the Southern vote. So you have Jimmy Carter running. There's a bit of worry that they're now actually going to have to fight for it. And an upscale limousine liberal like Nelson Rockefeller is probably not going to be the guy that you want on your ballot. So they start looking for people, and they decide the best chance that they have to win is a dude from Kansas by the name of Bob Dole.
Oh, and R.I.P. Bob Dole.
Gerald Ford consistently refers to it as the biggest regret of his career because he feels like he would have won if he kept Rockefeller. And so he's railing against Nelson Rockefeller despite the fact that he's no longer running. And he kind of changes things up a bit, saying that Jimmy Carter now is actually being run by the Rockefellers. So that's why we need to keep Gerald Ford in, and everything's cool. But I think we all know that you need more than wanton character assassination to win an election, because it means nothing without a huge dose of good old-fashioned fear. So by late September, Lyndon was warning anyone who would listen about an upcoming financial catastrophe. Turns out he had gotten word that a large number of, quote, third world countries were going to default on their payments to a number of banks in Manhattan. He predicted that when this happened, the banks would go out of business, leading to the financial ruin of much of the country. However, it wouldn't be all that bad, since he stated that such a sudden disaster would make him a shoo-in for the presidency, especially since he was currently estimating that without the disaster, he was getting about 5 to 15% support.
What?
Yeah, look, math, he's his computer. So it would seem that Lyndon wasn't entirely full of shit when the next week, a representative from Guyana spoke to the UN and said that it was time to call for a debt moratorium of all third world nations, and that a movement had formed in which 85 countries had all decided that they weren't going to pay their debts, making it kind of seem like Lyndon actually knew what he was talking about. The thing, though, is that this speech was delivered by a guy named Frederick Wills. Now, Frederick was the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Guyana. He helped in the creation of the nation's constitution, but he was also a follower of LaRouche, and when he addressed the UN, he did so entirely with LaRouche talking points. And those 85 countries that were supposedly members of his coalition were actually United Nations members who were meeting to figure out a way to remedy colonial debt and not banding together to accept Lyndon's half-baked plan. But again, why would that stop Lyndon from doomsaying and saying the economy was going to be fucked by the election? It's also kind of disconcerting that he has a dude in a seat of power in Guyana.
Yeah, very much so. Guyana deserves better.
Yeah. So on election day, Lyndon was expecting to be on the ballot in every state, win 15% of the vote, and ideally win the presidency. Of course, the financial crisis hadn't happened, so things were a bit more of an uphill thing. And like I said, he was pushing a bit more for Ford to be the winner instead. When the votes finished coming in, Lyndon didn't do quite as good as he hoped. He would end up finishing in 10th place overall with about 40,000 votes, which would come to 0.05% of the vote. He was beat by the Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party, and other.
Yeah.
And you know what that means, Una. I think we all understand this. Fraud most foul. Clearly a fraud has happened.
No, check the chads.
Instead of being a gracious loser, Lyndon joined members of the American Independent Party and the Republican parties, and they sued New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin for voter fraud, rigging the election, and claiming that a number of people who were illegal voters had been allowed to vote.
I feel like I'm finding the cuneiform tablets, linear B,
it's really
of every half-baked tweet out there right now.
Yeah, it's the Rosetta Stone of 2020.
Yes. Oh, this is so uncomfortable.
So Lyndon would send a telegram to the Department of Justice.
A telegram, because there was no Twitter.
Nope. And he wrote to them saying, quote, there were tens of thousands of illegally cast votes in the state of Ohio, more than 100,000 illegally cast votes in Wisconsin, and several 100,000 illegally cast votes in New York and Pennsylvania. The suits by all three parties would claim that, quote, the states failed to ensure that all unqualified persons would be prevented from registering to vote, and ultimately wanted the previous election to be voided and have a completely brand new election for all four states. And all of these cases would be thrown out. Jimmy Carter won, nuclear annihilation happened, and of course we're living in our bunkers now. It's great. So following the failure of 1976, one would hope that Lyndon, he might look inward, learn some lessons, grow from this.
He's not.
Of course not. We know our buddy Lynn. And introspection is in no way close of a good way to keep a cult going. And, I hate to say it, but for LaRouche, dude is about to hit the 80s. And that decade was going to bring him a real mixed bag. There was going to be a lot of failure. But Una, the man is about to actually enter into a world of power. He is about to get extraordinarily strong friends. He is about to be taken very seriously by people that you would not expect. And once again, it's all too bonkers to be true. And next time we're going to talk about Lyndon and the cocaine-filled 80s.
Oh my God.
We're not even close to done. We're not even near it. This is
so much.
It's really like you're digging for treasure in a septic tank. It's just infinite. You keep finding weird shit. And it's just like, this is going to make me feel terrible. I got to set it aside and I got to keep digging. So yeah, that's Lyndon's new terrible friends. He's run for president for the first time. Where's to go from here?
Cable. He's going to cable, isn't he?
I can safely say this: he doesn't.
Wow.
I think that would have been a natural progression and probably would have actually given him more power if he did. But then again, I mean, we heard the John Stein's performance last week. I don't know if he could take that to cable and have it stick.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like all I am truly grateful for is that the internet and social media did not exist then as it does
Oh my God.
today, because he's already a tire fire of a person, and that just would have been endless gasoline.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, he is pretty much like an Alex Jones who genuinely believes what he's saying. Like, I don't believe that Alex Jones is 100% serious, or at least he initially wasn't. He was definitely doing a performance, like a really bad ball impression. He maybe does now because it's his only option.
And the supplements do something.
Look, you got to sell Brain Force, man. I don't know what to tell you. But
with Lyndon, it's just like there's no grounding wire either.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Everyone who was supposed to love him is gone
because he curb stomped them.
Yeah, I see no evidence that he ever talked to his parents after leaving. He clearly is not very good at keeping wives. I don't think
he had no friends in high school.
Yeah, his two friends seem to be like an FBI informant racist and a guy who does bad coups.
Yeah, and Lyndon, they're not your friends.
Look, this is why you need parents to sit you down and be like, look, I know you think they're your pals. You're going to hate me for this. You're not allowed to see them, but you're going to appreciate what I did in the future.
Yep, you're going to grow from this.
Fuck growth. Lynn Marcus has shit to do. He got to write about rats. He's got to tell people to watch out for the Rockefellers in coded language. And
God,
Una, it gets worse. It gets so much worse. And I'm so excited. It's so terrifying.
I'm gonna listen to some Jay-Z Rockefeller to just soothe my soul.
Oh, New York's done this. Anyway, so that's that. And we'll see you next week in the rockin' fucking 80s here on Gadfly. Gadfly is a production of Added Serotonin. Our episodes are edited by Brianna Valentine of Rem Alternus Productions. Our theme song is Sophomore Makeout by Silent Partner, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at GadflyPod.
Ready to level up your cosplay game? Check out the Geek Forge on Etsy. With a variety of props to give your photos that extra spark, you'll find just what you need. Hold magical fire in the palm of your hand, or take a potion to restore your mana. With a large variety of colors, you can choose your own magical flavor for your cosplay. Bring drama to your photo shoots with these vibrant props and more, all available at the Geek Forge. Are you ready to level up your cosplay?